Hey, welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we give actionable, bite-sized tips to help you navigate your acting career. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and today we'll be talking about how to get acting work in the United States if you live in a different country. Now, I get asked this question at least a few times a week from different actors on my list. The trouble is that they don't have a work visa in the United States, and they want to know how to start an acting career. It's a tough challenge. Now, before I go any further in this episode, let me clearly state I am not an attorney. So anything that I share in this podcast episode is for informational use only. Laws are subject to change, and you'll definitely want to speak to an immigration attorney before you take action on anything that I share today. Now, I'm going to be covering two key things in today's episode. Number one is how to afford staying in the United States when you're starting to book acting work here. And number two is how to deal with the actual legality of work visas. Okay? But before we dive in, I'd like to briefly talk about my career coaching services for actors. I work with actors all over the world to help them get unstuck and move their careers forward. Even if you're not based in the United States, I can help you build your acting career. I've worked with people all over the place. I can help you learn what to do so that you start booking way more acting work than you found yourself booking in the past. So if you're interested, visit martinbenson.com, MartinBentzen. Yes, my last name is a little bit odd. B as in boy, E-N, T as in Thomas, S-E-N. martinbenson.com. And we'll do a free consultation just to see if my programs can help you. So now, back to the topic at hand. First off, how can you actually afford to get hotels or stay in the United States, especially if you're looking to work in a major city like New York, where prices are super high? Well, I have a few suggestions. First thing, and this applies regardless of who you are and how much experience you have, the fact is you don't actually need to move here right away to start building your acting career. I actually recommend starting by looking for acting work near where you currently live. I actually have a really good podcast that I've done on how to find auditions without an agent. And I definitely recommend listening to that because it can help you get auditions for some smaller projects close to where you live first. And that way it will be way easier to book acting work in the United States once you have some credits and footage for your reel. Okay. Now, you can audition online. Okay. So again, because of self-tapes these days and remote auditioning, you can still submit yourself for projects that are here in the United States, and you don't have to actually move right away and pay all those expenses until you start either booking things or until they start calling you to actually come over here. And then obviously you have to be prepared to travel. Now, once you are ready to move, you can, of course, stay in a cheaper location and then commute to the city. There's lots of trains and buses, and there's plenty of cheaper places to live that aren't New York or a super expensive city like LA. So, I mean, I'm from the New York area, so you have like Long Island, New Jersey, upstate New York, Connecticut. I mean, basically, the idea is you don't have to live in the actual city. You can live in a suburb or a different state that's right nearby if you're willing to either drive an hour or two or take some public transportation for a bit. And you can save a ton of money. My general recommendation is to not move to a high-cost living place like New York until you're booking more consistent acting work, at which point it'll be worth it because you'll be commuting so often, right? I'd rather you save your money at the beginning and start setting it aside for when you really need it. Now, I highly recommend staying away from expensive hotels. There's plenty, again, if you're considering moving here from a different country and you don't know much about how the United States and the cities are, there's plenty of options. You can like split apartment rent with other actors. You can also try things like Airbnb or co-living spaces or even hostels, all of which are significantly cheaper than hotels. And then finally, before you move here, I do recommend planning a 1 to 2 week visit where you would ideally line up a few different industry events like workshops or seminars or networking events, trade shows, even like film festivals if you want to. And essentially you line up all of this stuff for the time period that you're here in New York or wherever it is that you're going, and then you can get a sense and a feel for the acting industry here in the United States and basically make sure that it's a place that you're going to want to move to and live longer term. All right, so now that we've talked about how to actually afford it, let's talk about the slightly more complicated side of it, which is the visa process and how you can actually legally work here. Again, as stated earlier, I am not an attorney, so don't take any of what I'm saying as actual legal advice. You're going to need to look it up a bit yourself and find out the most up-to-date information. So, in general, to get a work visa in the U.S., you have to focus it on the type of work that you plan to do. Meaning you can't get a visa for some entirely different type of work other than acting, because if you do, you're still not going to be legally allowed to make money off of acting. You'll only be able to make money off of the thing that you got the visa for. Now, that said, there is something that's called an O-1B visa, and that's basically the way to go if you want to become an actor here. The problem is that it's very challenging because this visa is reserved for people who have, quote, an extraordinary ability in the arts. What that essentially means is that you should ideally be able to meet at least 3 of the following criteria. Number 1, you've held a leading role in a creative production, ideally something that was recognized by a union. Number 2, you've received national or international recognition, meaning press, about you. Number 3, you've held a position as a crucial member of a creative production. Again, ideally something that's been recognized by a union at least. Number 4, you've created a piece of work with high commercial success. Again, based on how much press, and in many cases, the ability to show how much money was made from it as well, if possible. Number 5, you've received praise from critics or other key industry members. Number 6, you've received high pay for services compared to others in your industry. So in other words, you've been paid significantly more than the other actors who were on whatever production it was. Once you're able to meet 3 of those requirements and you have proof, at that point, you're going to ideally want a United States-based agent or manager who can sponsor you. And then you're going to have to submit a petition. You're going to have to go to an interview and deal with some other legalities. And all of that stuff, again, as I said earlier, you're going to need a lawyer for it. So as you can see, the bar is pretty high for this, unfortunately. And it's also expensive unless you know a lawyer who's going to help you out for free. Or you could just get married to a United States citizen. Although that is up in the air because even then there's not certain guarantees. By the way, if you're a student, you can apply for a student visa to study acting work in the United States, but there are some restrictions in terms of actually earning money off of that acting work. So you should definitely research it in more depth or speak to an attorney first because, again, student visas may not work either. Now, all of that said, here is my recommendation. Okay, so when it comes to getting acting work, if you're not currently living in the United States and you're not a citizen, I highly recommend trying to build your career in your current country. Or if your country does not have that many acting opportunities, you should consider a country that does, that also has less strict requirements than here in the United States. Because remember, even for people who are born here, it's still extremely challenging to build an acting career. It's not like just because you get born here, you suddenly can make anything happen. It's just as, and in some cases, it could even be more challenging than building an acting career in a different country. There's so many people who are competing for acting roles here, and that's why I highly recommend trying to find an agent, book bigger and bigger roles, all of that in your home country first. Eventually, once you have a lot of work under your belt and some credits, at that point, you'll have a much easier time getting that O1B visa to work here. And not to mention, at that point, it'll also be much easier to get booked here because you'll already have credits and a reel and a good amount of experience. That basically means casting directors will be more likely to book you on their projects. Really, there's no shortcuts to the basics that I teach in this podcast and in my email list on building a strong acting foundation. Remember, moving to the United States or looking for other ways to kind of get ahead, it's not going to make that much of a difference whether you do it where you are or here. Okay? The ideal strategy involves getting unpaid work first, then transitioning to paid jobs, and then eventually larger, ideally union projects, so that you can start looking for a manager or agent to represent you. Now, before we wrap, let me briefly tell you about my mini course called Kickstart Your Acting Career. It's a 5-day course that dives deep on how to start getting consistent auditions if you don't already have an agent, credits, or reel yet. It works for actors pretty much anywhere in the world. And the fact is, getting consistent auditions for legitimate projects is critical if you want to start building your resume and have a shot at getting an agent and eventually being able to move and start acting in the United States. If you're not getting at least 1 to 2 auditions per week already, you'll definitely benefit from what you learn in Kickstart Your Acting Career. If you're interested, visit kickstartminicourse.com for more information and to sign up. Again, that's kickstartminicourse.com. And thanks for listening. All I have is one ask of you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're already subscribed, please leave a review on iTunes or Spotify. It's seriously the most helpful thing you can possibly do for me as I look to grow this podcast. Just search the Actor's Career Compass on either of those platforms and you'll find it. Reviews help a ton because they make these episodes more easily findable for other actors too. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.